Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are shifting gears a little bit.
Just a bit.
Usually, we're right there on the court. You know, we're looking at the pick and rolls, the buzzer beaters, all the defensive rotation. The fun stuff, exactly. But today, we're going behind the scenes? No, we're going way behind the scenes. We're going into the literal engine room of the NBA.
Right into the spreadsheet.
We are talking about the game behind the game. We are stepping into the war room, the front office, the place where championships are actually built, breaking, and, well, paid for.
Long before a single ball is even tipped.
Exactly.
It really is the invisible hand of the league. I mean, you can have the best transition offense in the world, you can have the most athletic wings, but if you lose the game on that spreadsheet,
it's over.
Your dynasty's over before it even really begins.
It's so true. We are talking, of course, about NBA salary cap, and I know I can almost hear some of you groaning already.
Oh, eyes glaze over.
For some, the phrase salary cap sounds like homework. It sounds like, you know, doing your taxes or staring at a legal document until your eyes cross.
It can be that.
But I promise you, if you stick with us, you're going to realize that this is actually a high-stakes strategy game.
Yeah.
It is 4D chess played with hundreds of millions of dollars.
And massive egos.
And massive egos and incredibly complex, sometimes baffling rules.
It really is. It's the set of rules that dictates the face of franchises. It explains the why. You know, why did your favorite team suddenly trade their best player for, what, a bunch of picks that seem like nothing?
Right. Or why does a billionaire owner, a literal billionaire, claim they can't afford to sign one more player?
Exactly. Why do teams tank? It all comes back to this. It is the ecosystem that moves players around like chess pieces on a global board.
And our mission today is simple. We're going to decode the jargon.
We'll try our best.
We're going to take terms like the apron, bird rights, the poison pill, and the Supermax, and we're going to translate them into something you can actually use.
Right. We want you to be able to win that argument at the bar.
Or at least understand what is happening on Twitter when it just explodes into chaos during free agency.
We're going to turn the collective bargaining agreement, or CBA, which is basically a massive, hundreds of pages long legal contract, into a playbook that actually makes sense.
Okay, so let's set the scene. Let's start with the foundational number. Based on the sources we have, for the 2024-25 season, the salary cap is set at roughly, what, $140.588 million?
That's the number.
That is the magic number. That is the line in the sand.
Right. But, and this is maybe the first massive plot twist of the day, it's not actually a hard limit.
Not at all.
And that is the most important distinction to make right out of the gate.
This is the aha moment for a lot of people, isn't it? Especially if you follow other sports like the NFL or the NHL.
Oh, absolutely. If you look at the NFL or the NHL, they operate under what we call hard caps. That means there is a rigid line, a brick wall.
No wiggle room?
None. If the cap is $200 million and your payroll is $200 million and one single penny, the league rejects the contract. That's it. You cannot operate.
There are no excuses, no loopholes, no rich owners just writing a bigger check.
No. If you hit the cap, you stop spending. You have to start cutting players. You have to trade them for less money.
Which is why we see that constant roster churn in football. I mean, you win the Super Bowl, and then you have to immediately cut 5 of your starters because you just can't pay them.
Exactly. It forces parity through, what did you call it?
Through brutality.
Through brutality. That's a perfect way to put it. But the NBA has a soft cap.
A soft cap, which sounds infinitely more comfortable, doesn't it? Like a soft pillow.
It is certainly more flexible, but I'd argue it's way more complex.
Oh, for sure.
The philosophy behind the soft cap is really about connection and continuity.
Yeah.
The NBA realized decades and decades ago that their product is star-driven. Fans fall in love with players, not just the laundry they wear. If you draft a superstar, a Michael Jordan, a Steph Curry, the league does not want you to be forced to trade him just because he hit his prime and got expensive.
It would be bad for business.
Terribly.
Yeah.
They want to foster that fan connection to a homegrown roster, to a player you've watched grow up.
So, okay, a hard cap forces roster turnover to keep everyone on a level playing field. But a soft cap allows for continuity if you know how to navigate the rules.
Precisely. In a hard cap system, success is punished immediately because everyone gets expensive and you have to cut them. In the NBA's soft cap system, you can keep everyone, provided you have the right exceptions and, maybe more importantly, an owner willing to pay the massive penalties. It's a system that rewards knowing the rules inside and out and having very deep pockets.
Okay, so let's unpack the roadmap for the next hour or so. We are going to look at the history of how we even got here, because, the cap didn't always exist.
Yep.
Then we're going to look at how teams legally break the cap. These are the exceptions, the permission slips.
The get-out-of-jail-free cards.
Exactly. Then we'll look at the punishments for breaking it too much, the luxury tax, and the new dreaded second apron.
Very scary stuff.
And we'll get into the specific rules that are literally named after famous players. Larry Bird, Derrick Rose. I mean, even DeAndre Jordan has a rule named after him.
It's fascinating, isn't it? How many of these dense legalistic rules are just direct reactions to one specific player doing something crazy or one team finding a clever loophole?
I love that. The history of the NBA is literally written in its own rule book. But let's start at the foundation. Section 1, what actually is the cap? I mentioned the $140 million number, but where does that number come from? It's not just pulled out of a hat by the commissioner.
No, it's a very specific calculation. It's strictly tied to the league's success, to its revenue. The cap is calculated as a percentage of basketball-related income, or BRI, from the season before.
Basketball-related income. That sounds big. It sounds all-encompassing.
And it is. I mean, we were talking about the massive TV rights deals. That's the big one. But it's also ticket sales, concessions, parking, merchandise sold at the arena. Basically, if the NBA logo is on it and it makes money, it goes into this giant pot.
So the players and the owners are essentially partners in the business.
That's the entire idea behind the collective bargaining agreement. It's a partnership. If the league makes more money, if the TV ratings go up, if ticket prices rise, the cap goes up and the players get paid more.
Now, what's the split generally?
Under the current CBA, it's pretty close to a 50-50 split. The players get roughly half of all the revenue the league generates.
And it's not just a ceiling, is it? There's also a basement. We always talk about the cap as a limit, but teams are also forced to spend.
Correct. There's a salary floor. Teams must spend 90% of the cap. The Players Association fought very hard for this.
Why is it so important to them?
Well, they didn't want a team owner in a small market just pocketing all that shared TV revenue and then fielding a team of minimum wage rookies and G-leaguers.
Right. They don't want an owner to just treat the team as a personal piggy bank without actually trying to win games.
Exactly. You have to spend money on talent. You have to at least try to put a competitive product on the floor. And the timeline for that has gotten much, much tighter in recent years.
How so? What's changed?
In the newest CBA from 2023, teams have to hit that 90% floor by the very start of the preseason training camp.
Oh, wow.
It used to be that you could wait until the very end of the season. Yeah. You could run a super cheap payroll all year and then just, give everyone a bonus in March or sign a few random guys in April to get over the line.
So you could cheap out for 95% of the season.
You could. Now, no. You have to field a legitimate payroll from day one. It forces your hand.
That's a huge shift, especially for those tanking teams that are trying to rebuild.
A massive shift.
Now, for a little history lesson, and I think this context is just wild, the NBA didn't always have a cap.
It's true. They actually had one briefly in the mid-40s, right at the very beginning of the league, but they abolished it after just one season.
And then nothing for decades.
Nothing. Through the entire era of Bill Russell, Wilt Chamberlain, the merger with the ABA no salary cap. It wasn't until the 1984-85 season that the modern salary cap was reinstated.
And the goal, I assume, was competitive balance, to stop the big market teams from just buying everyone.
That was the idea. By the early 80s, you had some teams that were really struggling to stay afloat and others spending wildly. They wanted to level the playing field so the richest teams, the ones in LA or New York or Boston, couldn't just buy every single good player in the league.
But the inflation here, this is the part that blows my mind every time I see it.
It's unbelievable.
In that first season, back with a cap, 1984, the total team payroll limit was somewhere between $3.6 and $4.6 million.
Wait, say that number again?
$4.6 million. For the whole team.
For the entire roster.
Yeah.
12 to 15 players, the total limit was under $5 million.
That is absolutely insane. Today, a single mid-level player, a guy who comes off the bench and plays maybe 20 minutes a night makes double that.
Easily. The mid-level exception alone, which is just a tool we'll get into for signing role players, is worth around $12 million today.
So just that one player signing is worth almost triple the entire team salary cap from 1984.
It really puts the growth of the game and especially the explosion of TV money into perspective. It's a completely different universe now.
It really shows you how much that basketball-related income has just skyrocketed. Okay, so we have this cap. It's soft. Which brings us right to Section 2, breaking the cap. You called them permission slips.
That's honestly the best way to think of them. Imagine the salary cap is a velvet rope at a nightclub. The $140 million mark is the bouncer.
Okay.
Most people can't get past it. If your name's not on the list, you're not getting in. But if you have a specific VIP pass, a special invitation,
Who just steps aside?
the bouncer steps aside and lets you spend more. These passes are the exceptions.
And the granddaddy of them all, the VIP pass that essentially built the modern NBA as we know it, is the Larry Bird exception.
The most famous one, and rightfully so. It is the engine that allows the entire soft cap system to function. Without it, the whole thing falls apart.
So take us back to the origin story. Why is it named after Larry Legend?
Well, back in the early 80s, when the cap was being brought back in, the Boston Celtics were a powerhouse. They had Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, Robert Parrish, the whole crew.
A dynasty.
A full-blown dynasty.
Yeah.
But Larry Bird's contract was coming up. And the Celtics were already at the new spending limit. Under a hard cap system, or without a specific exception, the rules would have said, sorry, Boston, too bad. You can't pay Larry Bird what he's worth.
You'd have to let him go.
You'd have to let him go sign with, the Kansas City Kings or some other team with cap space.
Which would have been a complete disaster for the NBA. The entire league was being built on the Bird versus Magic Johnson rivalry.
It would have been catastrophic. The league realized immediately that it would be terrible for business if a simple bookkeeping rule forced a team to cut its franchise icon.
Though they created a loophole for themselves.
They created an exception. And the rule is...
What is the rule?
The Larry Bird exception allows teams to exceed the salary cap to re-sign their own qualifying veteran free agents.
So basically, if a player has been with your team long enough, the cap just doesn't apply to him.
For re-signing purposes, yes. You can pay him whatever you want, up to his individual max salary, of course, regardless of your team's cap situation.
This goes right back to that philosophy of retention we talked about. This is the tool that lets you develop a star and actually keep him.
It is. It's the most important one. Now, to qualify for full Bird rights, a player needs to play 3 full seasons for a team without being waived or changing teams as a free agent.
Okay, 3 years. But wait, here's a nuance that I think confuses people all the time. If I trade for a guy who has played 3 years with another team, do I get his Bird rights? Or do they reset because he's on a new team?
Great question. And this is a crucial mechanic in the league. Bird rights travel with the player in a trade. That's incredibly important. If the Lakers trade for a player who is on the last year of his deal, they aren't just trading for his services for the rest of the season. They are trading for his Bird rights.
So they're acquiring the right to pay him in the summer.
Exactly. They're acquiring the right to go over the cap to keep him. That makes the player so much more valuable at the trade deadline.
Because if you just wait and try to sign him in free agency, you need to have a huge amount of cap space.
A huge amount. If you trade for him first, you don't. It's a massive, massive difference.
And are there, junior versions of this?
There are. It gets a little granular, but yes. There's the early Bird exception, which kicks in after 2 years with the team.
What's the difference?
It's a weaker pass. It allows you to re-sign a guy, but only for up to 175% of his previous salary, or the league average salary, whichever is higher. It limits your upside.
So you can keep a solid role player, but maybe not a star who's about to break out.
Exactly. And then there's the non-Bird exception for players with only 1 year of service, which is even more limited. But the full 3-year Bird right is the golden ticket. That's the one everyone wants.
Okay, so that helps you keep your own guys. But what if I'm over the cap and I want to sign someone else's guy? My team is capped out, we're in the tax, but we really need a shooter. Can I just go shopping?
Generally, no. If you are over the cap, you can't just go out and start offering contracts. Your checkbook is closed. But the league gives every team a coupon once a year. That is the mid-level exception, or MLE.
I love the coupon analogy. Good for one pretty good player.
That's exactly it. It's a tool that every team over the cap gets once a year to sign a free agent for a preset amount. But, and this is key, the value of that coupon changes based on how much money you've already spent. It has gotten quite complex in the modern game.
Okay, so break down the different tiers for us.
So first you have the standard or non-taxpayer MLE.
Yeah.
This is for teams that are over the cap, but not deep into the luxury tax zone. This is the big coupon.
How much is it worth?
Right now, it's worth about $12.8 million. You can get a really solid starter for that money. A guy like Dante DiVincenzo, for instance. That's a huge piece.
Okay. But what if you are a big spender? What if you're already paying the luxury tax?
Then your coupon gets smaller. You get the taxpayer MLE. It's About half the value, around $5 million, maybe a little more.
So the league is basically saying, okay, you're already spending a ton, so you can add a player, but he's probably going to be an older vet or a reclamation project.
Precisely. You're not getting a high-level starter with that. You're filling out the end of your bench.
And if you have cap space, what if you're under the cap?
Then you get the room MLE. It's a small sweetener, just a few $1,000,000, to help you fill out the roster after you've used up all your cap room on a big star.
And this is where the new 2023 CBA dropped an absolute hammer, right? We're going to talk about the second apron later, but it directly affects this coupon.
It's a massive hammer. The short version is, if you spend too much money, if you cross that dreaded second apron line, the league rips up your coupon.
It's just gone.
You lose access to the mid-level exception entirely. You cannot sign anyone from another team other than players on minimum wage contracts.
That is a complete game changer. It really, really restricts the super spenders from adding any quality depth.
That's the entire point.
What about rookies? What happens when I draft a guy?
That's the rookie exception. Simple enough. Teams can always sign their first-round draft picks to their rookie-scale contracts, even if they are over the cap. The league doesn't want you to draft a kid and then not be able to sign him because of some math problem.
That would be a PR nightmare. And there's one more that pops up every now and then, the biannual exception.
Right, the BAE. As the name suggests, you can use it once every 2 years. It's smaller than the mid-level, maybe around $4 million, and you cannot use it in consecutive seasons. It's just another small tool for filling out the rotation with a decent bench piece.
I see. Now, let's talk about a darker scenario. Disaster strikes. Your star player, making $40 million, snaps his leg in October. He's done for the year. Is your season just over? Do you just have an empty roster spot and a huge chunk of dead money on your books?
Not necessarily. In that scenario, you can apply for a disabled player exception, or DPE.
What does that entail?
If an NBA-designated doctor verifies that a player will be out for the entire season, and it has to be verified by their doctors, you can't just say he's hurt, the team is granted an exception to sign a replacement player.
And how much can you pay the replacement? The full $40 million?
Oh, no, not even close. You can pay them up to 50% of the injured player's salary or the amount of the non-taxpayer mid-level exception, whichever is less.
So you aren't replacing a superstar with another superstar?
No. If Steph Curry gets hurt, you aren't going out and signing other Steph Curry with the DPE. You are getting a solid role player to help you patch the hole in the boat. And remember, it's only a one-year contract. It's a temporary patch, not a long-term solution.
Got it. One more exception before I move on, and this is the one that confuses people constantly during trade deadline season. The traded player exception. This feels like the math class portion of the show.
This is all about the algebra of trading. In, say, baseball or football, you can sometimes just trade a player for a draft pick and dump the salary. That's it.
Not in the NBA.
Not if you're over the cap. You can't just trade a guy making $2 million for a guy making $20 million. The salaries have to match. Somewhat.
Somewhat being the key word. There's a buffer zone.
Right. The traded player exception allows teams to absorb salary in a trade as long as they sent out salary. The math used to be simpler, but generally for tax-paying teams, you can take back 125% of the outgoing salary, plus a small buffer, about $100,000.
Okay, let's put that into real numbers so it makes sense. If I'm a team and I trade away a player making $10 million.
You can take back a player, or multiple players, making up to roughly $12.6 million. That 25% buffer allows deals to get done even if the contracts aren't perfectly identical. It greases the wheels of the trade market.
Okay, but what about the other way around? What if I trade a big salary for a small salary? Say I send out a $20 million player and I get back a guy on a $10 million contract.
Then you generate a trade exception credit. You now have a credit for $10 million, the difference in the salaries.
And what do I do with that?
You have 1 year to use that credit to acquire another player in a separate trade without having to send any salary back out.
So it's like a store credit at the NBA trade store. You returned an expensive sweater, here's a gift card.
That is the perfect analogy. And teams hoard these things. They're incredibly valuable assets because they allow you to add a player to your roster without subtracting one from your current team. It's a way to add talent out of thin air.
Okay, so we've established all the ways you can break the cap. You have your bird rights, your mid-level coupons, your trade exceptions, but the NBA doesn't just let you do this for free.
No, sir.
There is a price to pay.
The punishment.
Section 3, the luxury tax in the apron. This is the stick.
This is the very, very big stick that balances the carrot of the exceptions. If your team payroll exceeds a certain threshold, the tax line You have to pay a tax to the league, a penalty.
And it's important for the listeners to know the tax line is higher than the salary cap line.
Much higher, yeah. You have the cap at, say, $140 million, and the tax line might be all the way up around $170 million less.
Yeah.
There's a buffer zone where you can use exceptions without paying a penalty.
But if you cross that $170 million line,
the meter starts running.
Yeah.
And it's not just a flat fee. It's not like a speeding ticket where you pay $100 and you just move on with your day.
No. And this is where it gets incredibly expensive. It used to be dollar for dollar. You spend $1 over, you pay $1 tax. Simple. But in 2013, they changed it to an incremental bracket system. It's a progressive tax, just like income tax.
The more you are over the line, the higher the rate you pay on each dollar. For example, if you were just a little bit over, say, up to $5 million over, maybe you pay $1.50 for every dollar you're over.
So a $1 million player costs you $2.5 million.
Exactly. Yeah. As you get into the higher brackets, $10 million over, $15 million over, that rate jumps dramatically. It goes to $2.50 and $3.25, $3.75, and it just keeps climbing.
So let's frame that for a fan. If a team like the Golden State Warriors is deep in the tax and they want to sign a backup center for a veteran minimum contract, say $2 million.
That $2 million player might actually cost the owner $10 or $12 million. You pay the player his $2 million salary, and then you write a separate check to the league for $8 or $10 million in taxes.
That is why owners get so hesitant to fill out that 14th or 15th roster spot.
That's exactly why. And it gets even worse if you are a repeat offender.
The repeater tax,
Right.
This sounds like you're going to criminal court.
It basically is in the eyes of the other 29 owners. If a team pays the luxury tax in 3 out of the previous 4 seasons, the tax rates skyrocket. They add a whole dollar to each bracket.
So that $3.75 rate becomes $4.75.
Correct. This is designed specifically to stop the richest owners, the Steve Ballmers, the Joe Lacobs, from just treating the tax as a cost of doing business every single year. It adds a multiplier that is designed to be painful even for billionaires.
And where does all this tax money go? Does the league office just throw a massive party?
Some of it goes to fund league-wide revenue sharing, but a significant chunk of it is collected and then distributed evenly to the teams that didn't pay the tax.
Oh, I love that mechanism. It's so clever. So if I'm a frugal team like the Indiana Pacers or the Charlotte Hornets, I'm actually rooting for the Warriors or the Clippers to spend wildly.
You are absolutely rooting for them because at the end of the year, you get a check in the mail for millions of dollars just for being fiscally responsible.
It creates this multi-million-dollar incentive to stay under the limit. You're not just saving money on your own salary, you're literally receiving a dividend from the big spenders.
That's a brilliant piece of game theory.
Now, we need to talk about the apron. This is a term that has become huge, especially in the last year. What is the apron?
The apron is a specific financial line set above the luxury tax threshold. Think of it as a secondary danger zone. Yeah. It's about $7 million above the tax line.
And it triggers a hard cap, right? But I thought we just spent 10 minutes saying there was no hard cap.
There is no league-wide hard cap. However, a team can trigger a hard cap on themselves by taking certain actions.
So you can choose to be hard capped.
You can. If you use the biannual exception, or if you acquire a player via sign and trade, or if you use that big non-taxpayer mid-level exception, you become hard capped at the apron for the rest of the season.
Meaning what exactly?
Meaning for the rest of that season, you absolutely, under no circumstances, can allow your payroll to exceed that apron line. Not for a penny, not for a day. It turns the soft cap into a hard cap for your specific team.
So you completely handcuff your own flexibility for the rest of the year. If a trade opportunity comes up, you might not be able to make it.
You literally cannot make a trade that adds even $1 of salary if it puts you over that line. It's a huge restriction.
And the 2023 CBA introduced something even scarier than the first apron, the second apron.
This is the biggest story in NBA finance right now. The second apron is a new, even higher threshold, set approximately $17.5 million over the tax line.
Yeah.
If your payroll crosses this line, the restrictions are draconian. It is designed explicitly to kill dynasties.
Okay, give us the list of horrors. Why is every general manager so terrified of this second apron?
If you are over the second apron, first, as we already mentioned, you lose access to your mid-level exception entirely. Gone.
So no adding free agents?
None, besides minimums. Second, you cannot send cash in trades. So you can't buy second-round picks from other teams anymore.
Okay, that's a small thing.
It is, but it adds up. Third, and this is a big one, you cannot aggregate salaries in a trade.
Explain that one for us.
Usually a team can trade, say, 2 players making $10 million each for one superstar making $20 million. You combine the salaries to make the math work.
Right.
If you are over the second apron, you can't do that. You can't combine contracts to acquire a more expensive player. It makes trading for a star nearly impossible.
And the draft picks. I heard there's something about draft picks.
This is the real killer for long-term planning. If you finish the season over the second apron, your first-round draft pick 7 years from now becomes frozen.
Frozen.
You cannot trade it. It's locked. And if you stay over the second apron for multiple years, that pick automatically moves to the very end of the first round. So pick number 30, regardless of your team's record.
Wow. So even if you're the worst team in the league 7 years from now, you get the 30th pick instead of the first.
Exactly. So it freezes your ability to improve the team now, and it actively punishes your draft stock in the future.
It creates a frozen roster. The goal is to break up super teams. If you want to have 3 superstars making max money, fine, you can do that. But you will have zero flexibility to put a supporting cast around them. You will be stuck with minimum contracts and no trade assets.
It's the league's nuclear option for parity.
It really is. Speaking of rich teams and rich players, let's move to Section 4. Player contracts. We hear the term max contract all the time, but a max contract isn't the same number for everyone.
No, not at all. It's tiered based on your years of service in the league. It's an experience ladder.
Okay, walk us through the tiers.
If you have 0 to 6 years of experience in the league, the maximum starting salary you can get is 25% of the total salary cap.
Okay.
If you have 7 to 9 years of service, that number bumps up to 30% of the cap. And if you're a longtime veteran, 10 or more years in the league, you can command up to 35% of the cap.
So loyalty and longevity literally pay off. Your potential earnings go up the longer you play. But there are ways to jump the line.
There are. And this brings us to one of the most famous examples, the Derrick Rose rule.
I remember when this happened. Derrick Rose was just a phenomenon in Chicago.
He was the youngest MVP in league history, an absolute force of nature.
Yeah.
And at the time, he was still on his rookie contract.
Right. So he was only eligible for that 25% max.
Correct. And the league and the Players Association basically said, okay, if a kid is this good, this early in his career, he shouldn't be stuck at the lowest max tier. So they created a rule just for players like him.
And what does the rule do?
The Derrick Rose rule allows a player who is still on his rookie contract, so 0 to 4 years of experience, to jump straight from the 25% max tier to the 30% salary tier, which is usually reserved for 7-year veterans.
But you have to earn it. You can't just be a good young player. You have to be truly great.
You have to be elite. To trigger the Rose rule, you must be named MVP, as he was. Or you have to start in 2 All-Star games. Or be named to 2 All-NBA teams.
That is a very high bar.
It's an extremely high bar. In fact, it's led to some absolutely fascinating financial drama over the years. Players will often have this clause written into their extensions. I get 25%, but if I make All-NBA this season, it escalates to 30%.
And we've seen guys miss it by a whisker.
It's financially heartbreaking. James Harden and Anthony Davis both had this escalator clause written into their early contract extensions. And both of them failed to meet the voting criteria by the slimmest of margins.
How does that even happen?
It usually comes down to the media votes for the All-NBA teams. A handful of sports writers leaving a guy off their ballot, maybe putting him on the 3rd team instead of the 2nd team, can literally cost that player $20, $30, even $40 million over the life of the contract.
That is brutal. Millions and millions of dollars are dependent on whether a writer in, I don't know, Milwaukee thinks you are the 2nd best forward or the 3rd best forward in the league.
It really highlights how these awards aren't just for prestige or a trophy on the mantle.
Yeah.
They have massive, life-altering financial implications.
Wow. Now, what about the big one, the Supermax? This is the designated veteran player extension. This feels like the biggest contract in all of sports when we hear about it.
It often is. This is also known as the Kevin Durant rule.
Because he left Oklahoma City for Golden State.
Yeah. Exactly. When Durant left OKC to join the 73-win Warriors, the league panicked. Small market teams panicked. They saw a small market team lose a generational homegrown talent to an existing super team.
And they wanted to stop that from happening again.
They wanted to give teams like OKC or Milwaukee or Portland a tool to keep their superstars. So they created the Supermax.
How does it work? What makes it super?
It allows the team to offer their own drafted player or a player they traded for while he was on his rookie deal a massive extension starting at 35% of the cap, even if they haven't hit the 10-year service mark yet.
So they can offer the highest possible salary tier years earlier than anyone else.
And for more years, with bigger raises. The whole idea is, we can pay you way, way more money than anyone else can. Please stay. We're talking a difference of $40 or $50 million total compared to what another team can offer that player in free agency.
It's a huge financial incentive. But has it actually worked? Because I feel like we still see superstars demanding trades all the time.
It's a very mixed bag. And there is a delicious irony with this rule. The very first player who became eligible for this massive record-breaking deal was DeMarcus Cousins in Sacramento.
Oh, right. Boogie Cousins.
He was putting up monster numbers on a bad team. He met the criteria. He was eligible for the Supermax, a deal worth over $200 million.
And what happened?
The Kings looked at that number, and they looked at their mediocre record, and they looked at his volatile personality.
A nice way to put it.
And they decided they didn't want to pay him that much. They were scared of that contract, so they traded him to New Orleans right before he could sign it.
So the rule that was designed to help the Kings keep him there actually forced his exit because the price tag got too high for them.
Exactly. It put the Kings in a put up or shut up position, and they chose to shut up and trade him.
What about other examples?
Well, then you have Anthony Davis. The Pelicans offered him the Supermax. He was the first player to publicly refuse it. He basically said, keep your extra $50 million, I want to go win. And he forced a trade to the Lakers.
He paid a huge premium just to leave.
He did. But on the other hand, it has worked. Giannis Antetokounmpo stayed in Milwaukee and signed the Supermax. Damian Lillard signed it in Portland, even though he eventually left later. Nikola Jokic signed it in Denver and won a title. So for some players, the golden handcuffs work. But for others, the desire to win or just change scenery outweighs even that much extra cash.
It's fascinating psychology. Is $50 million enough to make you stay in a city you don't like or on a team that's not winning? For some, yes. For others, no.
A very expensive question.
Let's shift gears to Section 5, free agency mechanics. When the season ends, the chaos begins.
The summer soap opera, my favorite time of year.
First, we have to distinguish between restricted and unrestricted free agents. What's the difference?
Unrestricted is simple. You're free. Your contract is up. You can sign with anyone in the league who has the money to pay you. LeBron James, Kevin Durant, when their deals are up, they are usually unrestricted. They control their own destiny.
Restricted is where all the strategy and game theory comes in?
Right. Restricted free agency usually applies to players coming off their 4-year rookie deals. The team that drafted them still controls them to a degree.
They have the right of first refusal.
Correct. The player is allowed to go out and solicit a contract from another team. This is called an offer sheet. But before he can sign it, he has to bring it back to his original team.
And they get to decide.
They have 48 hours to match that offer. If they match it, dollar for dollar, the player must stay. He has no choice in the matter.
And this leads to some very dirty tactics. Let's talk about the poison pill.
Oh, the poison pill. This is a strategy used by a rival GM to make it as painful as possible for the original team to match the offer sheet.
The classic example that everyone brings up is the Jeremy Lin saga, Linsanity.
The Houston Rockets, led by their GM at the time, Daryl Morey, wanted Jeremy Lin. He was a restricted free agent for the New York Knicks. The Knicks had publicly signaled they would match any normal offer to keep him.
So Morey didn't make a normal offer.
He structured the offer in a very creative or devious way. They backloaded the money.
Explain that structure for us.
It was a 3-year deal. The salary in the first 2 years was very reasonable, something like $5 million a year. But the third year, it ballooned to a massive number, around $15 million.
Now, for the Rockets, the team making the offer, the cap hit was just the average of the 3 years, so it was manageable.
Right. For the offering team, it smoothed out over the life of the deal. But under the rules at the time, if the Knicks matched it, they had to take the actual salary hit in each individual year.
So that massive balloon payment in year 3 would have hit their salary cap for the full massive amount.
And because the Knicks were already a big spending over the tax team.
That 1 year, $15 million salary would have triggered an astronomical luxury tax bill. We're talking tens of millions of dollars in taxes just for Jeremy Lin in that 1 year.
The Knicks looked at that future tax bill, and they blinked. They didn't match. Lin went to Houston. It was a checkmate move.
Ruthless. I love it.
It really is financial warfare. There's also the Gilbert Arenas rule, which was a fix for a similar problem with second-round picks, basically limiting how much other teams can offer early on to prevent the original team from being unable to match due to weird cap rules.
Now let's talk about the timeline. July 1st hits, free agency starts, but nothing is actually signed immediately. This is the moratorium.
Right, the July moratorium. It's a period, it's now about 5 or 6 days, where deals can be agreed to verbally, but pen cannot officially hit paper. It's designed to give the league time to audit all the previous year's finances and set the final official cap number for the upcoming year.
But verbal agreements, I mean, those aren't legally binding.
They are not. It's a gentleman's agreement. And this brings us to the infamous DeAndre Jordan rule.
One of the wildest days in NBA Twitter history. I remember exactly where I was.
The DeAndre Jordan hostage crisis of 2015. So DeAndre Jordan verbally agreed to sign a max contract with the Dallas Mavericks. The moratorium was ongoing. Mark Cuban, the Mavs owner, was celebrating. They had their star center.
And then what happened?
DeAndre started having second thoughts. His old team, the Los Angeles Clippers, caught wind of it.
And the Clippers didn't just, call him on the phone.
No. The Clippers coach, Doc Rivers, and a bunch of players like Blake Griffin and Chris Paul, they all flew to Houston where DeAndre lived. They went to his house. They essentially blockaded him in his own home.
They wouldn't let him leave.
They started tweeting emojis of planes and cars and bananas. It was reality television playing out in real time. They stayed with him playing cards and video games until the clock struck midnight and the moratorium ended, just to make sure he couldn't answer the phone if Mark Cuban called.
And at 12:01 a.m.
he signed the contract with the Clippers. He completely stiffed the Mavericks and left them with no center and no cap space.
And because of that one absolutely wild incident, the league changed the rules.
They did. They shortened the moratorium from about 10 days down to 5 or 6 days. They wanted to reduce the amount of time for buyer's remorse to set in. They basically said, okay, we can't have teams holding players hostage in their own homes.
Another rule in the book. What about when a player wants to leave, but his new preferred team doesn't have any cap space to sign him? This is where the sign and trade comes in.
This is a mechanism that can be a win-win-win, usually. The team that is losing the free agent signs him to a new contract and then immediately trades him to his new team.
Why would a team do that? Why help a player leave?
Well, for the player, it gets him to a team that is over the cap and couldn't have signed him otherwise.
Yes.
The best recent example is Jimmy Butler going to the Miami Heat. Miami didn't have the cap space to sign him outright.
So Philadelphia signed him first?
Philadelphia signed him to the contract he wanted and immediately traded him to Miami.
And what does the losing team Philadelphia get out of it?
Instead of losing their star player for absolutely nothing, they get assets back. Maybe a trade exception, maybe a draft pick, maybe another player. It's much, much better than watching him just walk out the door for zero return.
Unlike MLB, where you just get a compensatory draft pick from the league.
Exactly. In the NBA, you have to engineer the compensation yourself. But, and this is a key restriction we mentioned earlier, the receiving team in a sign-and-trade, in this case Miami, becomes hard-capped at the apron for the whole season.
Everything has a cost. There's always a trade-off.
Always.
Okay, Section 6. Weird science. These are the deep cuts, the loopholes, and the fixes that have built up over the years. Let's start with the over 38 rule.
This used to be the over 36 rule, which is an important detail. It's a rule designed to stop teams from circumventing the cap by signing older players to very long contracts that everyone knows the player won't actually finish.
So deferred compensation in disguise.
That's exactly what it was. Imagine a team signing a 37-year-old star to a 4-year deal. They know he's probably going to retire in 2 years. But by spreading the money out over 4 years on the books, they lower the annual cap hit for the years he's actually playing.
It was a loophole.
A pretty clever one. So the league said no. If a contract extends past a player's 38th birthday, the salary for those later years is presumed to be deferred and is accelerated onto the cap hit of the earlier years. It basically removes the benefit.
But you said it used to be the over 36 rule. Why the change to 38? That seems specific.
Well, let's look at the politics of it. Who was the president of the Players Association at the time this was being negotiated in the last CBA?
Chris Paul.
Chris Paul. And who was another key executive on the union's board?
LeBron James.
Two guys who were, at the time, approaching 36 and wanted to be able to sign long, lucrative, multi-year deals.
Funny how that works.
Isn't it? They negotiated the age up from 36 to 38. That change specifically allowed Chris Paul to sign a massive 4-year deal with Phoenix and for LeBron to sign extensions with the Lakers without triggering the penalty. It's a great example of the union leadership directly benefiting from a rule change they negotiated.
That is very convenient. Now, what about the amnesty clause? This sounds like a legal pardon from a governor.
It is, financially speaking. It's a mechanism that has appeared in a couple of past CBAs, usually right after a league lockout, that allows a team a one-time ability to waive a player and wipe his salary completely from their salary cap and luxury tax calculations.
The player still gets paid his money, right? The owner can't just tear up the contract.
Oh yeah, the check's still clear. The player gets every single dime he is owed, but the salary just vanishes from the team's books. It's a get-out-of-jail-free card for one really bad contract.
And the 2005 version of this rule has a hilarious nickname.
The Allen Houston rule.
Yeah.
The Knicks had signed Allen Houston to a massive back-breaking $100 million deal, and then his knees just completely gave out. He couldn't play. Everyone in the league assumed the rule was created specifically so the Knicks could waive him and save all that tax money.
And did they use it on him?
They did not. In one of the most baffling decisions in franchise history, the Knicks did not use the Allen Houston rule on Allen Houston. They used it on Jerome Williams, a role player known as the Junkyard Dog.
Why would they do that?
Nobody knows. They kept Allen Houston's massive dead salary on the books. It's just peak Knicks.
You can't make this stuff up.
Then, in 2011, there was another amnesty round after that lockout. Teams used it to clear guys like Gilbert Arenas, who had a huge deal, and Brandon Roy, whose knees had also failed him. It's a reset button for a general manager's biggest mistake.
We also have the stretch provision. What's that?
This is a way to make the pain of waiving a player with guaranteed money left on his deal a little less painful in the short term. If you cut a guy, you can stretch his remaining salary over twice the remaining contract length plus one additional year.
Okay, an example. If I owe a guy $20 million for one more year and I cut him.
You can stretch that $20 million over 3 years. That's twice the remaining 1 year plus one. So instead of a massive $20 million cap hit this year, you take a smaller $6.6 million cap hit for the next 3 years.
So it opens up immediate cap space, but it clogs up your books with dead money for the future.
Exactly. The Los Angeles Lakers famously did this with Luol Deng. They were paying him millions of dollars a year for years and years after he last played for them. It can come back to haunt you.
And finally, trade ballast and the wink-wink deals.
Trade ballast is just a term for adding extra players to a trade solely to make the salary math work. But the wink-wink deal was a specific loophole that the league absolutely hated.
The Zydrunas Ilgauskas situation in Cleveland.
The quintessential example. The Cavaliers traded Ilgauskas, their longtime center, to the Washington Wizards as part of a bigger deal. Washington didn't actually want him. They just wanted the other assets in the trade. So Washington waived him almost immediately after the trade went through.
Okay, so he's a free agent.
And then, after a mandatory 30-day waiting period, he just re-signed with Cleveland for the rest of the season.
So Cleveland basically got the assets they wanted in the trade, and they got their own player back for nothing.
Exactly. It completely undermined the concept of a trade. So the league closed that loop very quickly. Now, if you trade a player and he gets waived by his new team, he cannot re-sign with his original team for 1 full year or until his traded contract would have expired. No more wink-wink deals.
It's just an endless game of cat and mouse. The teams find a loophole. The league closes it in the next CBA.
That is the entire history of the collective bargaining agreement. It is a living, breathing document that is constantly reacting.
So bringing this all together for the outro, after all of this, what does this mean for the listener? What's the big takeaway?
It means that the salary cap isn't a static set of rules. It reacts. The poison pill strategy led to changes in the offer sheet rules. The DeAndre Jordan situation led to the shorter moratorium. Every single weird rule has a story behind it.
And usually that story involves a very clever general manager trying to get an edge.
Or a very rich owner trying to save a little bit of money.
So here is a provocative thought to leave you with. The stated goal of all these complex rules, the salary cap, the luxury tax, it's all designed to create parity.
Right, to level the playing field between the big markets and the small markets.
And yet, the Supermax, which was intended to help small market teams keep their stars home, sometimes forces those same teams to trade their star away because they're scared of the massive price tag.
Right.
And the luxury tax, which was meant to curb spending, sometimes just becomes a cost of doing business for the ultra-rich owners in Golden State or Los Angeles, while the smaller market owners are happy to stay under it and just cash the tax distribution checks.
It raises the fundamental question. Is the cap actually working? Is it actually creating parity? Or is it just changing the rules of engagement? The big markets still have huge advantages. They just had to be more creative with their accounting now.
Maybe the cap isn't a tool for parity at all. Maybe it's just a way to make the game more complicated without actually changing who wins in the end.
A question worth mulling over, for sure.
So the next time you see a confusing trade pop up on your phone, don't just look at the players' names. Look at the exceptions being used. Look at the tax apron.
Ask yourself, are they trying to get under the second apron with this move? Did they just generate a big trade exception? That is where the real game is being played.
Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll see you next time.
Keep watching the cap.